Hi, this is Steve Falcon Napier. Welcome to the Circle of Brilliance. Today, with any luck at all, we'll be finishing our discussion on spiral dynamics. Today, focusing on how to translate these different levels into plottable activities that we could be using with a client. So that's the ultimate goal. Now, before we launch into it, I do want to bring something to your guys' attention and ask you guys to help us out a little bit. We have been very active in adding the membership functionality to our website. And so you're looking at right now ChangeWorksSystem.com, which will be the new homepage for at least a foreseeable future. Couple of things, if people come, but for me to do this, I have to log out. Just a second. So log out so you can see what's going on. Skip all that. ChangeWorksSystem.com. You'd be looking like that. So people who are coming to us, they'll be looking at becoming a member. That's where all these different tiers are explained. And if someone wants to sign up, they would click on whatever tier they want to join. So we have been running some tests now internally and with our developers, and now it's time that things be tested with real humans. The only one I would like you guys to help us test right now is the one that's free. And so if you have an opportunity later on today, if you'll just come to the website, changeworksystem.com, click on Become a Member, and then under the Explorer level, just click on Join the ChangeWorks community for free. Hopefully everything will work properly. So it should not ask you for any credit card information whatsoever. Do give it a legitimate email address because there's a variety of emails that you should receive to confirm all sorts of things. So this is what the registration form really looks like. It's just asking for your name, whatever username you want. And by the way, you can make all this stuff up. I really don't care what you do, but make sure you put in a legit email address just so you can let us know if the confirmation email came to you. I would also be very curious to know at the end of your registration process, you should immediately be taken to a member resources page. And right now, rather than showing that you can sign in, it should say you've already logged in. So if those things are happening, then we'll move on to the next level of testing, which is where the money's involved. And we've already got some people set up to help us with that because we have to automatically refund them when they do whatever that test happens to be. So if you guys can, it'd be really interesting if you could just test out the free sort of service. One other thing for you to know, those of you who have active ChangeWorks accounts, the question is, how do you get to the ChangeWorks system now? And the way that you get to the ChangeWorks system is by coming to, the main homepage. And right here, you're going to see System Access. When you click on System Access, it's going to ask you to put in your username and password. And it should definitely do that. Now, for reasons we don't understand, it is taking us to a place where we got to do that all over again. Now, it might be limited to me because I have multiple ways I could actually log into the system once I access it, but I want to know, why didn't it log me in using the credentials that I already gave it? And so there is a puzzle. No, that's fine. Just do this. That's fine. Okay. Yeah. So this is something we need to kind of figure out. So let me know if you guys are logging in to use the system like you normally would. Is it asking you to do it twice? Or is that just something that's isolated to me? Yeah, not now, don't need to do that. And then there are a few cosmetic things we're going to do, like this. Welcome to the ChangeWorks system. This has been sitting there for years, so I need a different message put there. But anyway, there's things like that. But right now, we just want to make sure the mechanics are working. So if you'll do that. Now, I wanted to log in because what we're doing today is focusing on creating activity lists. And to make it easy, I'm going to use my personal ChangeGrid kind of engine. And yeah, we can delete all those. It doesn't really matter. I'll just go ahead and edit them. So here's the question that we all face. By the way, everybody, welcome. Those of you who have just joined in, thank you for joining in. What we're going to do today is see what we can do in the name of creating an activity list. So I'll give you a scenario, and I'd like you to start crafting some activities around this. So I am a self-proclaimed orange level business owner, and I would like to respond to my new generation of employees' spoken and implied desire to move a bit more in the green direction. So what sorts of things do you think that me, as an established orange, might want to do in order to keep the best of the orange happening, but move on to some of those green things in order to, I don't know, evolve as my business model goes. So any thoughts about that? Any activities you want to throw out? Oh,
Well, I
just,
think I'm thinking delegation.
mhm. Okay.
So I'm struggling a little bit with the task, but I would think that delegation would be an orange to green kind of move.
Yeah, in fact, let's for a moment look at some of the green things here. Promoting a sense of community and unity. Maybe that's, I think, one of the ways that delegating things might be able to do. Or if I said, okay, sharing this society's resources among all, but sharing all of our work resources among everyone who needs them. Particularly if I've got a larger company, and this would involve budgets and full-time equivalents in the employee rankings and technology, whatever it else might be. Certainly this delegation would resonate very well with reaching decisions through consensus. So anyone want to try their hand at actually crafting a complete activity around that one? Don't all of you unmute at once. That makes
Yeah,
editing a nightmare.
I keep wanting to start it out with not a verb, and that's the
And well,
problem.
that's all right. Let's go ahead and throw it out as it occurs to you, and we'll.
I regularly delegate to improve the skills of my staff.
Okay, so we're just going to, instead of turn that into from that format, we'll just start with a verb. So delegate um,
Regularly
regularly, regularly to
to,
my, to improve. Mhm.
to improve the skills of my staff.
Great. Okay, and that's a perfectly useful one to get started with.
And T, I had a couple of them.
Yes, Tim, go right ahead. And Tim,
So
for just a moment, we got, I think we have some new people on the call. If you want to just remind everyone who you are. Tim's one of our new people.
good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tim White. I'm based here in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm an independent human capital consultant. Uh, Most of my clients have engaged me with training in the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So that's sort of my focal point right now. Have been doing this work for over 20 years, public sector, private sector, and now since 1999 have been independent.
Mhm.
Um,
Excellent.
and so, T, I focused on, as a result of that, I focused on the area of diversity in the green column or category. And I had two. One says researching how to establish employee resource groups. And then the second one said celebrating the diversity of team members during staff meetings. So I'm not sure if that's what you
Sure.
had in
Yeah, well, let's see what we can do. So again, we want to kind of phrase that. So let's go, I'll start with a research establishing. Tell me more.
research how to establish employee resource groups.
Mhm. Okay, now let me comment on that one just for everyone's benefit. Also, Tim is now ready in his training to start learning some best practices. So if you guys will remember, we have several different categories of activities. So what we usually are striving for are mission critical activities. So what is the actual activity that will ultimately make the difference you're trying to make? On the way to performing a mission critical activity, there may be mission incidental activities, which are preliminary activities that have to be taken care of in order to reach the big one. So now, I believe in this particular case that the question of research is big enough that I want to leave it as is. But I would also say to you that I could begin this activity with the verb establish. So I'm going to copy that and paste it into activity number 3. I imagine you guys are actually seeing me do this as I'm doing this. So right there. Now, how was I able to do that? But because there were 2 verbs in the activity as it was first proposed. So research and establish. So sometimes we would say, well, the front end is just so incidental. I really don't need to explore that on a change grid. But there are other times when you go like, no, the job of researching this is tougher. It's not incidental. It's a job in and of itself. So Tim, I'll defer back to you. Does researching it right now qualify as a serious complex job in and of itself, or is it purely incidental?
It qualifies.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about how people might go about researching how to establish an
So
employee resource.
yeah, so typically when we're working inside of an organization, um, if that organization has not established employee resource groups, then we can work with them on how to make that happen. If they have, oftentimes what the DE&I department would like to do is to have us position them as the primary resource, so that if I'm doing a session with a group of leaders, they would want me to direct those leaders initially back to them because they have in-house resources and they would have already established resource groups throughout the enterprise. And so as opposed to sending them externally. So in that regard, if I'm thinking of a leader who has not established that with their individual organization, then that might be the directive.
Okay, great. And so let's say now the research is done. Now
Mhm.
it's time to formally establish that that group.
Yes.
Does that feel as though that's a mission critical activity?
Yes, most definitely, because
Yeah,
it could also be in line with the vision of the DE&I operation.
that's right. That's right. So how about now again for everybody, y'all unmute, feel free to chime in, Jane and Kathy, everybody else, you feel free. How many of you believe you could build a complete activity list purely around this thought of establishing an employee resource um, group?
Yeah, I mean, do you have the personnel? Do
Yep.
you know, I mean,
Yeah, I got
sure.
to identify who's going to be in the group,
Yep.
who's going to be in charge of the group. Are there any sorts of specific objectives that are assigned to this group? What metrics do you want to establish around the group? And so if you had a client who was very much interested in just doing a deep dive into this one step in the direction of green, you could create a complete activity list just around this one activity.
Mhm.
All right, let's see. And Tim, what was your second one again?
Celebrating the diversity of team members during staff meetings.
Celebrating diversity. Sorry, I can't type and talk at the same time. Diversity of staff members. How'd you phrase that? During meetings?
Yes.
Okay, so something along that line. We'll always polish up the words during.
Yeah.
All right, and so we're talking about let's make some very formal time for this to happen. And so again, we always want to go back to the test question, is the mission critical activity celebrating that diversity? What do you guys think? Celebrating the diversity? Who votes for yep? Feels pretty mission critical to me.
Yes, but I would say celebrate diversity.
Oh yeah, and that ends up bringing another good best practice up. So sometimes when we are choosing the verbs seem to end with ing. And sometimes the verb is just in their root form. So is there a reason why we would favor one form over the other? And so it's interesting that when they end with an ing, we're talking about something that feels like it's not an event, but more of a process or more of a something we'd like to see continue in the future. Where if it's doesn't have the ing, then it feels like it's a task to be taken care of and checked off of a list. So the best practice we've always said is you can choose whichever verb form you think actually resonates best with whatever your big objective happens to be. But whatever it is, please keep it consistent throughout the entire activity list. So if we decide that celebrating is an ongoing process, we want to go back and ask ourselves, well, establish or establishing an employee resource group. See, now I get into a little debate where I go like, well, that feels like a task to be taken care of. But if I want to add a task, let me go ahead and copy this one for just a second. And turn it into something that would be going on for the foreseeable future, maybe that verb would change from establish to maintaining an employee resource group. And by the way, just so things are in order, we can just slide that. And I think you guys all know it'll reorder it when you tell it to please save your work. And it goes, okay, fine. No, don't look up the word my. I know what my means. Okay. But like researching or research, delegate or delegating, I think in this one we would want to change it to an ing. And as the list is fleshing out right now, I don't think the list is going to lend itself to limiting it to just one verb ending. But yep. Okay. Any questions about what I just said though about verb endings? Yeah. Nope. Okay. So going back to what Tim was saying, celebrating diversity of staff. That definitely feels like it's mission critical. Is there anything else you might want to add to the list?
How about reaching consensus on key decisions?
Reaching consensus on key decisions. Did I type that correctly? Okay. Now, the question becomes, is that mission critical? Is it mission incidental? Oh, by the way, the other category is mission optional, which is just stuff that's so routine you decide to just don't bother. Like check your email. Never create an activity list that says check my email. It's mission trivial.
If you're driving toward building a more green, moving into the green meme, then you would, our value set, then it could be.
Yeah, I think so too. And by the way, if we want to say, let's say that the client has a set of key decisions that could be listed. Maybe we would want to then create a separate line item for each of those key decisions rather than key decisions in general. So you can always do that as well. Now, is there any work that needs to be done before I can reach consensus?
Yeah, I would be something about engaging in open dialogue around key decisions that need to be made or something like that, because you would really, I'm thinking of, the 5 behaviors of a cohesive team, and with one being, dialogue or collaborative discussion, to where healthy dialogue. That's what I'm trying to engage in, healthy dialogue.
You like healthy or you like open?
Well, if you think about Pat Lencioni, it's healthy because you're not, you don't want to, it's okay to disagree, but you want to disagree on content and not get into like a toxic
Sure
discussion or where you're calling people names and stuff like that.
Yep. All right, excellent. Okay, I'm very curious about something. Why is that box longer than the other ones?
Yeah,
I've got
that's
to
a good
ask.
question.
Yeah, I'm going to ask the developer about it because overall, I'd like it to be longer. Let's fill this available space. I know that when you're looking at the other kinds of change grids we create, here's where the description field goes. So they may very well just have deleted that column altogether. And but it sure would be nice on my personal change grid if we could have all this available space used for visible activity. Yeah. Okay. So that's on my list. I'll send a note over to the developers a bit later. This kind of work is never done, ever. So It always takes longer. It always costs more. So, okay, so let's take a look at some of these other. Now, in all fairness to the scenario as I presented it, I said that at the same time that I want to support my employees' desire to move in the direction of green, I see its value. There's still some orange stuff that I want to make sure is still being done, is still being protected. So is there anything there?
I would suggest engaging, and this kind of straddles both, I think, engaging in regular debriefings, engaging in debriefings at the end of every meeting.
After action reviews.
At the end of, I heard action reviews thrown in there too.
After action reviews.
Okay.
After action reviews.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. All
After-
right.
After action.
After we can get rid of all this. And look, that'll probably fit. I really want to write a really long one to see how far out it stretches. Okay. In debriefs after action reviews. Okay, great. Tell us a little bit more about that.
It's engaging in after action reviews. So
Yep.
regularly engaging in after action reviews, and the idea is to just make sure that you use some model like continue, stop, start, or plus delta, or whatever, so that team members have the opportunity to continuously improve, comment, change whatever action is being taken, and it builds consensus, and it builds a common platform for improvement.
Excellent.
And it's kind of an orangey thing because it goes along with metrics. I mean, it was developed in the orange vein,
Yeah.
and so it goes along with metrics and continuous improvement concepts.
Okay, good. All right, I like that. Let's come up with two more, and then I'm going to give you a different scenario.
How about something about being committed to the organization's goals? So commitment to organizational goals remains essential.
Well,
Well, it would be maintaining commitment to organization.
there we go. Yep.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys will have a little bit of fun with this because, again, I've known David forever and then some. David has a very strong background in, all sorts of things by now. I don't know what part of business he hasn't developed expertise around, but when it comes to hiring people, the whole job description kind of thing. And so a couple of the statements that he has shared with us are formulated the way HR would normally formulate things. So it's a statement that's being made. We need to turn it into that. And there's always the verb. So that's really it. So I'm bringing this up for Tim's benefit because he's new to this whole idea of crafting the perfect activity list. And I've shared with him that when it comes to using the ChangeGrid, reading a ChangeGrid is pretty straightforward. Yeah, you need to read a lot of them to get really good at it, but it's pretty straightforward. It is the crafting of that activity list that makes or breaks the subsequent value of the ChangeGrid. And so this whole idea about getting really picky about the way activities are phrased, it really is the art of it. It really is the real work.
It's almost like doing all the practice before the event.
Yeah, there you go. And I also bring it up because Tim will now step into the confessional. Tim, tell everyone how much experience you have as an HR professional.
Oh, wow.
There you go.
I like to present it as over 20.
Yeah, and so and many of you on the call have very strong HR backgrounds. HR has a tendency to pack activity words, pack verbs, and pack outcomes into a single job description statement. That is absolutely, you could probably build a whole activity list off of one of their line items. But we always have to work with people with a strong HR background to say, you need to dissect that into whichever mission critical activities you really care to be exploring. And so I like this idea about, I think it's about remaining commitment to organization goals. So maintaining commitment.
Or it could be inspiring commitment, which would be a different activity.
Yeah, now that's kind of a greenish, but still that orange kind of thing. So inspiring commitment, sustaining commitment. Oh,
Uh,
and Tim, for your benefit, when we have these discussions on activities, you will be quite surprised how much time we will all debate what is the best verb to pick from.
Oh, garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah, and that's it. That's how we got to go. Like, wait, what are we really, what's truly mission critical? Is it inspiring? Is it maintaining? Is it, um, uh,
Sustaining,
what's that?
Sustaining.
Gaining, building,
sustaining.
sustaining,
Is good. Yeah.
sustaining commitment to organizational goals. Now, I think the way we just phrased that would make that orange business owner happy. And would it in any way make the green kind of go like, ooh, that's, what? No, I think they're okay with it. Yeah.
The importance factor is going to tell the story on that.
There you go. Great observation. Yeah. Because if they kind of go like, well, is that really important? The thing that I think is that, if anything, I would like to think that greens understand that sense of commitment to a goal. Maybe even more so than employees in an orange structure, because the employees in an orange structure might feel as though the organizational goals are being imposed upon them, and therefore they are being policed into doing whatever those
Right.
organizational goals are, where you think the green person is already more mission driven anyway. And hopefully they've aligned themselves with a business opportunity that resonates with whatever their green sorts of goals actually happen to be. So what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, it's why
Yeah.
why the interview process is so essential.
Yeah, tell us more about that.
Well, what you're looking for is fit to the team, fit to the culture, fit to the environment, fit to the manager, fit to the customer, and those are all values based.
And so how do you go about determining that in a regular interview setting?
It's probably worth more discussion than we have time for, but there's a section in the interview process where I tell people to put modesty in their hip pocket, brag a little bit, take me back to high school or college, and walk me through your life, and take about 45 minutes to do that.
Wow, excellent.
Tell me the decisions you've made, tell me the choices you've made, tell me what you've gained, what you've lost. Try to be as detailed about it as possible. And then I shut up for 45 minutes unless they go too slow and I speed them up, or they go too fast and I slow them down. But you'll learn so much about a person's values from that exploration that gives you invaluable information.
That's wonderful. That's good. Good. Yeah. Excellent. Thanks.
I think another aspect there that lends to this is behavioral-based interviewing, because you could then, if you use behavioral-based interviewing, you could really hone in on activity.
Well said.
Yeah, and again, we just so we're clear about all this, we've always discouraged people from actually using a ChangeGrid directly during an interview process. But there's no reason why you can't use every bit of what you know about a ChangeGrid, as long as it's being used in a conversational modality rather than pulling out a grid.
Yeah, because I would want to know how challenging a salesperson views cold prospecting or filling their funnel.
Yep.
And then what have you done to make that happen, and what challenges did you run into? What did you do to overcome them? I mean, there's so much in there.
There is, absolutely. Okay, let's do one more, and then we're going to change the scenario a wee bit.
I have one. Let me try this and see if this works. Supporting employees to take charge of their own development.
Ooh,
okay, supporting employees. Oops, learn to type T. Supporting them to take charge of their own development. All right, and that certainly resonates with a lot of what I see down below. Yeah. Yep, good. Now, obviously, if you were going to really work with this transition, or what do they say, see, I don't want to say transition because we never give up the level below us. We always carry with us all the best parts of all the levels that came before us. But this idea about adding some of those or expanding whatever our value system is to include more of the next tier up sorts of things is what we're going for. Obviously, if I said, all right, you guys, I want you to create a whole activity list purely around exploring the inner beings of self and others, but you got to do that from the perspective of a corporate client, or promoting a sense of community and unity from the perspective of a corporate client. You could do that, and perhaps you should. But one thing I've been doing recently is saying, how many different bullet points have all of the people who have ever written anything about green come up with? And the answer is there's probably a good dozen or more readily available. So maybe we just use those to get started and move from there. Okay, any questions about how to go about using this then with a corporate kind of a client?
No.
It's pretty straightforward, easy enough. Okay, then let's move it on to a little more challenging situation. You are now working as a coach and you have an individual client who very much has, in fact, I'll give you even more specific scenario. They have retired from great success as an orange sort of level business owner, operator, whatever the case may be. So this is the life they have always lived, is orange with a great big dose of blue thrown in and maybe a little bit of red. So this has been their reality. And they're saying, now that my work life is over, at least how I was defining it previously, it's time for me to move on. I really want to pour myself into expanding my sense of green, my existence in green, my green values. Now, what sorts of things might you want to throw out as things someone can try? So pure green.
One of the things that I'm doing with someone just like that now is asking him to explore what finds him joy,
Okay.
what brings him joy.
What brings you joy? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Identify.
Yep. Jane, did you want to throw one in?
I was just going to say, as a task, identify, it seems like it would be the essential task, and explore is just the part of.
Oh, good. Yeah, because that's what I was going to, I thought you had a totally different one you were throwing onto the list. But yes, this is the thing. When I think about exploring what brings me joy, is that the mission critical or is that incidental to the mission critical? And that mission critical, in fact, I'm just going to use the same activity. It could be explore. Oh, I'm going to go all HR on you people. So identify and focus upon what brings you joy. And that's three separate activities, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, depending on the client, I would say that there are some clients who may have no concept whatsoever about what brings them personal joy because they've always defined themselves in terms of their family, their children, their work, other people. And this is all about, if we look at this, explore the inner beings of self and others. And because they've probably spent a little bit more time working with others, maybe we say, perhaps you should start with yourself. Are we in agreement that that might be a good thing?
Yeah.
So they may need to explore as a mission critical activity, explore what brings them joy. So, and then I'm just going to copy and paste. Oh, what am I doing? What did I just do? Undo. It's very difficult to talk and use your hands at the same time. It is. It's a weird thing. I'm sure someone has studied it. So, and then obviously the last one is, so once I've explored it, I should be able to identify it. And once I've identified, I should be able to practice it or focus upon it, whatever the case may be. How do you think someone would go about exploring what brings them joy?
Well, there are lots of ways to think about that. So you could think back over past life stories about when you felt really proud of yourself, and And when you accomplished something that you felt really proud of, or that you had a time in your life that you really enjoyed, and then tease apart the elements that the common elements between multiple stories. So that's one way to do it.
Okay, so I just added activity 13. Identify X life experiences that brought you joy. Maybe that would help them get going in that direction. Okay, and by the way, maybe we should all do this exercise. You know, let's have a little dose of green. So yeah. In fact, if all of you just step in the confessional for a second, when was the last time you took a personal inventory of the things that have happened in your life that truly brought you joy? And wouldn't it be interesting to even say the things that are non-family related? Because every one of that's a parent, you're going to say the birth of every one of your children, or when you watched your children achieve a particular milestone. So if we want, I think the goal of this is to broaden the full range of life experiences that have brought you joy. You guys with me on that? And I guess I'm sensitive to that because living in an over 55 community,
Right.
we've met plenty of friends who, if they were said, let's have a great conversation, the only thing we can't talk about tonight are your grandchildren, they would be hard pressed to have anything to say.
So, I identify with that crowd, and my goal would be to play a satisfying round of golf.
Okay.
There you go.
And so you would say that that's an experience that brings you joy.
Yes.
Yep.
Now, I want you to know that happens about once every 20 times that I play the game.
Yeah.
And I only play it 4 or 5 times a year.
Okay. Yeah. So this is a pretty rare experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. We live on a golf course. And so because of just the way sound travels, we can often hear comments that the golfers are
Oh,
making.
yeah.
And apparently, I'm not a golfer, but apparently this hole that travels in front of our property is quite difficult. And so we hear all kinds of choice words being
Yeah.
screamed at an inanimate object. So,
Well, somebody hits a good drive, they're lining up for their second shot, it's probably a par 5, and they duff it in the ground.
yeah. Oh, you'd be quite. It's pretty comical at times, actually.
I think
Okay.
that's why the bars do so well.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so that's it. So, what kinds of experiences bring someone joy? Now, when we look at something about exploring the inner being, what else might that include? So beyond joy, what else might that include? I can talk from personal experience. I know the reason why I go to yoga, and the reason why I do my breathing and I do my little meditations and all that is because I really am just trying to find a moment. I don't want to say peace because I don't have a chaotic life. But when I think of peace, I think about silence. So that for whatever reason, my inner being thrives in quiet, peace and quiet. And so calming my mind, because that's where most of the noise comes from, is my own mind. So how do you guys think that's something that others might explore? And how would you phrase that as an activity that's plottable?
Yeah, I was thinking about mindfulness, T, as you were asking the question.
Mhm. So let's talk about verb mindfulness in daily practice. I don't know what the verb is. I've always wondered, what do I do? I know what mindfulness is as a kind of a state to achieve, but what's the verb?
Set aside
Incorporate,
time.
Setting aside time. What, Kathy, what were you about to say, or Jane?
incorporate.
Incorporate
That's a lot better.
mindfulness. Oh, you really can't type and talk. Incorporate mindfulness in daily practice. It's amazing. When I'm just typing, I can type the better part of 100 words per minute. But if I'm talking at the same time, I suddenly become a hunt and peck kind of typer. So incorporate mindfulness. Now, I don't know what incorporate really translates into. So, for example, well, mindfulness I can do all the time. But maybe like when it comes to yoga, this is about carving out the time, getting back to the point David was alluding to. So some of these things you actually have to set aside sacred time for to actually do that. I am also interested in that first verb they chose, explore the inner beings. So when I think about mindfulness or I think about meditation, is that a process of exploration? And if so, how? Any thoughts?
I mean, I think it is all about exploration. I mean, that was, one of the reasons I used the term explore in the first place, because it is about seeking, it's about looking, it's about opening boundaries, it's about reaching out,
Okay.
or reaching in, however you want to look at it.
Sure, sure, sure.
So yeah, I think exploration is a huge part of
Okay, good.
whatever it's about. Yeah.
You know what? But I wonder, is it exploration feels more not aggressive, but active oriented. And I think it's more reception oriented mindfulness. I just feel like it's more of an act of being open and receiving like a vessel rather than exploring. Seems like you're taking steps. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm going to just type a word in there. So noticing realizations during quiet practices. So
another word might be inviting.
Inviting, okay.
Mm.
Yeah, certainly I would like to think that the act of me sitting down and doing my yoga is the invitation. But I can tell you that as much as I try during yoga to achieve some sort of state of quiet, peace, within seconds of that state, even having the tip of my toe dipped in, suddenly all kinds of new ideas and new insights and whatever pop up. And for a while, I thought I needed to stop that from happening. And then someone said, perhaps that's the point of it, is to allow these things to now come to you. So,
and T, it is a state of allowing. If you're trying, the moment you are trying is an act of intention, and intention takes you from alpha to beta. So it's pulling you out of it. So I think there's that fine line. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's brain activity as soon as you're intending.
Yeah. And so what I like about that is that what we're doing here is that that's creating a whole wide variety of activities that we might want to put on a change grid, depending on what the conversation is we're having with our client. So let's say there's someone who's been practicing some mindfulness. Well, where are they in that practice? Do they have difficulty getting into a mindfulness kind of state? Is it, what is it that's really going on? Are they deriving any sorts of benefits from the mindfulness? What was their point in doing that? Similarly for yoga or meditation or whatever the practice happens to be. We have about 10 minutes left. Let me jump down to some of the ones that are not so easily controlled by the individual. So what if we said, let's look at bullet point number 4, liberating humans from greed and dogma. So again, I'm your client, I'm a coaching client, and I'm saying I'd like to really develop more of my green values. What sorts of things might go on an activity list that would speak to liberating humans from greed and dogma?
Well, the first one that I thought of was about providing team-based incentives, but the problem with that is that any incentive is going to be less than green, I think.
Yeah, it does seem a bit more on the orange side of things, because
Right.
I do think a lot of these green things are supposed to be governed by some altruistic, motive that profiting at an individual level from whatever is not really part of the goal. So yeah, and I find that same issue with me because I'm so programmed into orange
Yeah.
that a lot of these things, but when I look at liberating humans from greed and dogma, how do you go about doing that? So just in general, forget trying to apply it to an individual level. How does a society, how does a culture liberate humans from greed and dogma?
Well, you would encourage or encourage self-expression,
Mhm,
um, of not versatility, variety,
mhm,
or when I'm trying to think, diversity of self-expression.
mhm,
What
mhm.
Tim kind of was talking about diversity early on.
Yeah,
Diversity
given,
of thought and self-expression.
yeah, yep. I like that. I also think maybe the area there is about eliminating the greed. So maybe doing something selflessly, volunteering, um, not expecting some great benefit that would at least help reduce the greed focus at that individual level.
Another might be practicing gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
Practicing gratitude. Okay, great.
One of
So,
the things when you look at the warm colors, red, beige, red, orange, versus the cool colors, blue, green, turquoise on up, you're moving from individual to collective. So the
yes.
warm colors are individually driven, the green colors are collective. So, I mean, the cool colors are collective. So thinking of green in a collective sense, the collective good.
Hmm.
Um, so you're moving from an individualistic value set in orange into a collective value set in green.
Hmm.
That could guide your activities.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, because when I'm reading a lot of these, I go, well, the obvious way to me to for a lot of these bullet points to be worked upon is to get involved with something. So if to promote a sense of community and unity, I probably have to become part of a community or join in with people who are trying to accomplish, something along the line. When it comes to sharing society's resources among all, why do I think there's some work to be done there that is inclusive of other people and all those good sorts of things? So a lot of this to me feels like part of the answer is about identifying, um, I'll just say green to save the struggle for finding the right words, but identify green opportunities to get involved.
What could be like community
Mhm.
service opportunities for teams to be involved in?
Yep. Um, like one interesting thing, there's a company when I have been doing business in Europe, you'll often find Pret a Manger. It's a little restaurant. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Pret. I think there's a few
Mhm.
now in
Yeah,
New York.
yeah.
Um, yeah, Pret a Manger means ready to eat. And this is a very large organization. I don't know how many locations they have, but they're on every corner you look at if you go to London. Or Paris for that matter. But they specialize in ready to eat food. So everything is packaged. There's packaged up salads and sandwiches and all that sort of a thing. And at the end of every day, all of the inventory is eliminated by donating it to people who need
Mm.
food or whatever. So there is nothing on the shelf that is even 1 day old, because they make everything in the early morning hours to get it out to the locations, and at the end of the day it is all donated. So nothing other than bottled beverages will be there the next day from whatever the previous day's inventory was. So to me, that's a very green way of operating a business, because we all know making a sandwich, it's probably going to still be good 3, 4, 5 days from now. Why do I need to turn over my inventory completely every single day? But that's what they do. That's what they do. And by the way, they certainly monitor things so carefully. So by the end of the day, they shouldn't have an excessive amount of inventory remaining, but nevertheless, they still give it. So I go like, well, you know, at a business level, I can come up with all sorts of things. But when it comes to that individual client who wants to cultivate more of this green sorts of behaviors, a lot of it has to do with getting people involved. Like the fifth business point or bullet point, reaching decisions through consensus. Oh, I've been logged out. I've got a lot of people who live inside of my head, and they do argue with one another quite often. But I think that to really understand the benefit of reaching decisions through consensus, you need to be involved in a place where there could be multiple people who would take part in that decision-making process. Otherwise, what's the whole point of consensus? So refreshing spirituality and bringing harmony. Yeah, there's a lot of that I can do as one, but I will tell you that when it comes to fulfilling my spiritual needs, my harmony needs, I need to practice yoga with other people. Doing it all by myself, even in front of a class that's being done virtually, it's just not the same thing. So yeah, anyway, thoughts about that, the green, you really do need now to be able to reach out and participate with others for a lot of these to be achieved. Yeah. Yes, no.
Well, I was just speaking, I was thinking of refresh spirituality and bring harmony. I was just thinking maybe some activity around self-care. So, you know,
Mhm.
and I haven't even really thought this through, but something around encouraging people to actually take their vacations and,
Mhm.
you know, use vacation time and take breaks and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah, in fact, we've had a lot of clients. This again goes back primarily orange in their value sets, but they recognize that for long-term employees, occasionally offering a sabbatical
Mhm.
is a good thing to do. And it can't just be take 2 weeks and go on a sabbatical. They'll let you go for 3 months, 6 months, whatever it happens to be, and they give you your pay while you're doing that. So yeah, that's a very green value to add to an otherwise orange
PT,
enterprise.
I thought of one. How about encourage others to maintain their own well-being?
Mm.
Okay, yeah. And I think that's doing a lot for several of these green things. And again, if I'm still primarily an orange, I go like, hey, the healthier my people are, the more productivity I am likely to get out of them. So by cultivating one of these green values, I may actually be enhancing one of my orange desires. Yeah. So I like that. Okay, well, I think that with just 2 minutes left, I think that if what we have been able to accomplish in these several sessions on spiral dynamics is to not only give you guys some awareness around the existence of a very interesting model and exercising your ability to see how that model overlays or interacts with the change grid, but ultimately, were we able to see how this can actually help you better understand your current clients and work with them as they proceed on their own evolution of values? I think we've accomplished what we set out to do. So any feedback on that?
No, I think it was very good.
Yeah, yeah, interesting
Great.
stuff, everybody. Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, good. So let me tell you what I have planned. There was a request made that I would like to start building on starting Thursday. And that is looking at models that don't necessarily overlay just on the change grid, but actually overlay on the master stream. And so what I would like to do on Thursday is to spend time talking about Ken Blanchard and Paul Hersey's model, situational leadership, which by now has got to be what, pushing 40 years old?
Mhm.
Yeah. And really understand how it overlays on the change grid. Now, because it was all part of the early merging of brilliance exercises, we know for a fact that it does overlay, but it does not overlay on the change grid. That being said, the ChangeGrid greatly enhances the situational leadership model. And so I would encourage all of you to participate in that call, because I have a different spin on it I want to present than perhaps we've done on other calls that we talked about situational leadership. So with that, thank you all so much for joining in on today's call, and we'll pick up where we left off on our call on Thursday. So thanks, everybody.
Good day, everyone.
Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.